First Coast Math Clinic with Lesson 10, Solving Equations with Decimals, from Unit 2, Equations and Expressions, from our Pre-algebra and Algebra curriculum. The goal in this video is to solve and check equations that include decimals, and I'm going to show you two different ways to solve equations that include decimals, starting with kind of the more traditional method, and then I'll show you a way to basically eliminate the decimals from your equation. So just a quick review of the steps to solve the equation, because we're going to be looking at equations that have variables on both sides, similar to the equations from the previous lessons, lesson 8 and 9, I believe. And this is going to be our first example. So we've got 2.3x, so 2 3/10 x, minus 4.4 equals 5.1, so 5 1/10 x, minus 7.2, or 7 2/10. So let's start by combining our like terms across the equal sign. So our like terms have the same variable raised to the same power. So we're going to start with 2.3 and 5.1. I'm going to move 2.3 to the right. So let's subtract. Remember, we want to use inverse operations. So operations that undo whatever's happening with that 2.3. 2.3 is positive. So let's subtract 2.3 and subtract 2.3x from both sides. 2.3 and 2.3 cancel out. So we get negative 4.4. And then 5.1 minus 2.3 is going to give me 2.8x minus 7.2. Our second set of like terms are going to be the 7.2 and 4.4. So now I want to move that 7.4 from the right to the left. So let's undo subtracting and add 7.2 and add 7.2. Negative 7.2 plus positive 7.2 cancels out. So we're going to get 2.8x on the right, and then negative 4.4 plus 7.2 gives us 2.8. Then we can divide out by 2.8 and 2.8. As we're at step 2, isolate the variable using inverse operations. 2.8 divided by 2.8 is just 1. If we're multiplying and dividing by 1, we don't need to write the 1, and we're going to get 2.8 divided by 2.8, which is just going to give us 1. Our last step, we're going to check. So I'll kind of squeeze this check in here. So wherever we see an x, we want to replace that with our value 1. So we'll get 2.3 times 1 minus 4.4 equals 5.1 times 1 minus 7.2. So we'll get 2.3. 2.3 times 1 is just 2.3 minus 4.4 equals 5.1 minus 7.2. When we subtract these out, we're going to get negative 2.1 and negative 2.1 on the left and the right side. So our answer of 1 checks. Okay, let's move on to our second example. So for number 2, we've got negative 1 2/100 minus 1/10 x equals 3/10 x plus 18/100. So what I want to do here is I actually want to get rid of these decimals before we actually start solving the equation. So let's think about how we're going to do that. So if I have the decimal 0.4 and I want to get rid of that decimal, right? So I know this decimal is just one place to the left. If I want to get rid of that decimal, well, what can I multiply that 0.4 by to get rid of the decimal? Well, I can multiply it by 10, right? If I multiply by 10, it's going to basically move that decimal to the right one place, and that's going to become 4. Now, what if instead of 0.4, I have 0.04, right? So I have 4/100. Now what do I need to multiply by? Well, instead of multiplying by just 10, I need to multiply by 100 because I have to account for the 1, 2 place values, right? If I multiply by 100, now I'm going to get 4. And if I have got, I keep increasing those place values, right? So if this is 4,000, I'm gonna have to multiply by 1,000, just keep adding in place values to move that decimal, because we're moving the decimal more and more place values, okay? So I'm basically going to have to do the same thing here with this equation. I'm just going to have to figure out what is the largest amount of place values I have to move the decimal and multiply it by that value, right? So let's look at our numbers. -1 and 2/100ths. Well, this is hundredths, so I'm moving that decimal 2 place values, right? So I have to multiply this by 100. This is 1/10. I have to move that 1 place, so this is just by 10. This is 3/10, so I just have to multiply that by a 10. And this is 18/100ths, so I'd have to multiply that by 100. Well, remember I need to account for the largest place value, so that's going to be the 100 and the 100, because if I just multiply by this 10, right, it's not going to take me as far as I need to go, right? If I multiply this like 0.04 times just 10, it's only going to move that decimal 1 place value, and I'll have 0.4. I'll still have the decimal point in the number, which I don't want. So I've got to figure out exactly how far I need to move the decimal and multiply by that, which in this case is going to be the 100. So let's multiply it by our left side and right side by 100 to get rid of our decimals. So let's start by doing that. Let me clean this up a little bit. All right, so on the left side, I'm going to multiply by 100. So 100 times -1.02. I'm going to move that decimal 2 places, so it becomes -102 minus 100 times 0.1. I'm moving the decimal 2 places, right? I have 2 zeros, so the decimal is going to move 2 places. So it's going to become 10x equals, and whatever I do to the left side, I have to do to the right side. So multiply by 100 on the right side. So this decimal is going to move 2 places. So that's 30x plus 18. All right, now we have an equation with no decimals, and we could start solving by combining our like terms. So I'm going to add 10x and add 10x. 10x is canceled out. I'm going to subtract the 18. Subtract the 18. 18 and 18 cancel out, so I'm going to get -120 equals 40x. Divide by 40. Divide by 40. 40 and 40 cancel out. And I get x equals -3. So my answer here should be -3. So let's check this. And for our check, I'm going to put this back into the original equation. I'm not going to use the equation that we got after multiplying by 100, because if we made a mistake at that first step, I'm not going to catch the mistake. So I want to put it back at the original equation. So we've got -1.02 minus 0.1 times -3 equals 0.3 times -3 plus 0.18. So -1.02. And then -0.1 times -3 gives me positive 0.3. And then 0.3 times -3 gives me -0.9 plus 0.18. Now, if we add this up, -1.02 plus 0.3 is going to give us -0.72 on the left, and on the right, -0.9 plus 0.18 is going to give us negative point, actually that's right here, negative 0.72. So our answer checks. We get the same value on the left and the right. So our answer checks. Okay. So this was these are two examples for lesson 10, solving equations involving decimals, from our equations and expressions unit. If you like this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. First Coast Math Clinic.